It was a drizzling late afternoon when the billionaire's sleek black sedan rolled to a stop beneath the flickering street lamp. Rain fell in thin silver threads, soaking the asphalt and turning puddles into tiny mirrors of the darkening sky. Nathaniel Carrington, the world's youngest self-made billionaire, sat in the back seat, absently tapping his fingers against the fine leather upholstery. He'd attended another charity gala, another round of polite applause and stage smiles yet. Nothing had touched him tonight. His life was enormous numbers, grand gestures, and strategic philanthropy. But somewhere beneath the tailored suit and the headlines lay a fascination for something authentic, something uncalculated. As the chauffeur stepped out to open the door, Nathaniel's gaze drifted to the curb. There, under the meager shelter of an ancient elm tree, a young woman knelt, her rain-drenched hair plastered to her cheeks. In her arms, she cradled a tiny baby swaddled in torn cloth. Tears didn't glisten on her face. They vanished in the downpour. She raised a trembling hand, palm up, in silent supplication. He watched as she shifted the infant closer to her chest, eyes fixed on the road where cars passed without a glance. She seemed suspended in a world that refused to see her a ghost among the living. Something inside him stirred. He pressed the call button. "Take us there," he said softly. Within seconds, the sedan glided alongside the elm, and the chauffeur brought the car to a halt. Nathaniel opened the door and stepped into the rain. The cold droplets soaked through his designer suit in an instant, but he didn't flinch. He approached the woman carefully. "Excuse me," he said, his voice gentle but firm. She looked up, startled, huge, dark eyes staring back with a mix of fear and desperation. "Yes?" she whispered, her voice raspy from disuse. "May I help you?" She swallowed, her lips trembling. I'm just trying to feed my baby." He glanced down at the infant, a fragile, wailing bundle, its tiny fists scrabbling against the cloth. His heart clenched. Without a word, he reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and pressed a crisp bill into her hand. "This is for food and dry clothes," he said. She stared at the bill, then up at him. Thank you." She stammered. Nathaniel stepped back. "Come," he said. "Get in the car. I'll drive you somewhere warm." She hesitated, as if weighing a lifetime of mistrust. The rain beat against her back. Finally, she nodded. He held the door open. She climbed in, clutching her child. He followed, closing the door behind them. Inside, the interior was a world of part-heated leather, soft lighting, a faint scent of cedar and citrus. The chauffeur looked in the rearview mirror and nodded, and the car glided away from the curb. For a long moment, no one spoke. The baby whimpered and then settled into a soft sigh. The woman's shoulders shook. Where are you taking me?" she asked at last. "To my home," he replied. "You and your baby need dry clothes, warmth, and food." Tears brimmed in her eyes. "I can't impose." "Nonsense," he interrupted kindly. "Tonight, you're my guests." She nodded, bowing her head. They arrived at a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of the city. Its doors gleamed with polished brass, and firelight danced behind tall windows. He led her inside, where a butler awaited. Warmth enveloped them, and the smell of fresh bread and roasting vegetables drifted down the hallway. "Please," Nathaniel said to the butler, "bring fresh clothes for her and her child, something comfortable. Have hot food prepared immediately." The butler inclined his head and disappeared. Nathaniel guided the woman toward a cozy sitting room, where a fire crackled. She sank into a plush armchair, the baby in her arms. He seated himself across from her. "I'm Nathaniel Carrington," he said. "It's a pleasure to meet you." She blinked at his name, recognition and embarrassment flooding her face. You're the billionaire," he smiled gently. Call me Nathaniel, and please call me friend." She drew a trembling breath. "I'm Marisol, Marisol Reyes. Marisol," he repeated. "You and your son are safe here." She rocked the baby. "He's my only son, his father. He left us months ago. I lost my job 2 weeks ago. I've tried every shelter, every soup kitchen. There was nothing." Her voice broke. He listened, silence offering more comfort than words. When the butler returned with warm-clothed soft socks, a cotton shirt and leggings for Marisol, and a tiny sleeper for the baby Nathaniel, excused himself to make a quick call. He reappeared minutes later with a steaming bowl of soup and fresh bread. Marisol ate gratefully, her tears mingling with spoonfuls of broth. Nathaniel studied her. She was young no more than 25, yet exhaustion lined her face. The baby, now quiet and content, drifted to sleep. "Rest," he said softly. "I'll be back shortly." He left the room and wandered the hallways of his own home, reflecting on the encounter. He had built his fortune in technology, creating software that connected millions. He was lauded for donations to universities and hospitals, but his philanthropy always felt abstract. Numbers on a ledger, photo ops, speeches. This was real. A mother and child, vulnerable and alone, entrusted to him. He found himself in his study, where walls bowed under the weight of accolades and framed articles praising his success. He looked at their faces himself, younger. Him with political figures, him smiling beside giant checks. He pressed his palm against the glass of an award. He realized he needed more than awards. He needed to transform real lives. He picked up the phone. "Angela, it's Nathaniel. I want you to find housing for a woman and her baby. No expense spared. And set up a trust fund for the child's education. Also, get me her resume paperwork. She's applying for a job with Carrington Enterprises. I want her in our entry level." "Program? Understood." He hung up and returned to Marisol's room. She sat staring at the fire, her eyes distant. "I spoke with my assistant," he said. "You'll be moving into one of our townhouses near campus. You'll have a full-time job interview next week at my firm. And for your son, Colin, there's a fund set up in his name for school." She stared at him, mouth agape. "I don't know what to say." "Say you accept," he replied with a warm smile. She closed her eyes, tears falling freely. "Thank you," she whispered. He left her to rest. Over the next few days, he checked in daily. He found himself looking forward to her calls, hearing her voice, and to meeting Colin. He discovered that Marisol was an excellent student of computer science, driven to provide a better future for him. He arranged for her to audit classes. At the local community college, while she worked. In the weeks that followed, Marisol settled into her new home. She called him Mr. Carrington at first, but he insisted she use his name. She moved into his firm, starting in a junior coding position, her talents quickly drawing attention. He'd occasionally visit her cubicle, offering advice, but mostly he let her find her own footing. He watched as she blossomed, confidence replacing fear, bright ideas replacing resignation. One rainy afternoon, much like the day they met, he stepped into the lobby of Carrington Enterprises and paused. At the reception desk, a young woman glanced up. "Mr. Carrington?" she said with a polite bow. He nodded and proceeded to the elevators. As the doors slid shut behind him, she looked down at her computer screen, at a line of code that would revolutionize the platform's security protocol, and smiled. Marisol had become indispensable, her innovation safeguarding millions of the users. Nathaniel couldn't have been prouder. Yet one question tugged at him still. What would he discover next about the woman and child whose lives he'd changed? Months later, he invited Marisol and Colin to his penthouse for a celebration of her first major patent approval. As they ascended, Colin pressed his small face against the glass elevator wall. Eyes wide at the city below Dot at the door, he greeted them with genuine warmth. They stepped into a modern living room, bathed in sunset light. The city skyline stretched. Before them, an expanse of possibility that mirrored Marisol's own. He raised a glass of sparkling water. To Marisol Reyes, whose genius and perseverance remind us all why we work to uplift those who need it most. Marisol's eyes glistened. Colin climbed onto Nathaniel's lap, hugging him fiercely. "You changed our lives," Marisol said. Shook his head. "No," he replied softly. "You changed mine." As Colin drifted to sleep that night, tucked into a silk-sheeted cradle in Marisol's spacious bedroom, Nathaniel stood at the window, watching the lights of the city flicker. He thought back to the rain, to that chance moment under the elm tree. He realized that sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't in boardrooms or laboratories, but in the hearts of those we choose to help. And in that moment, surrounded by quiet warmth, he knew that true wealth was measured not in dollars, but in the lives we touch and the tears we wipe away along the way.